Hey everyone, welcome! Have you ever paused for a split second before swallowing a little white pill and thought, wait, how exactly is this about to work? Today, we're jumping into a fascinating explainer on the mind-blowing science behind the world's most popular painkiller, paracetamol. Or, depending on where you live, you might call it acetaminophen, Tylenol, or Panadol. Well, for literally decades, we've been popping these pills without entirely understanding their secret biological mechanisms. But thanks to some brand new, groundbreaking research, that mystery has finally been solved. Get ready, because the science of how we fight pain is just an absolutely incredible story.
Let's start with a scenario we are all way too familiar with. Picture this. You're walking through your living room in the pitch dark, and bam, you stub your toe violently on the edge of the coffee table. Ouch, right? Or maybe you're stuck at your desk, staring at a screen all day, and this pounding headache starts creeping in. You reach for paracetamol, swallow it down with some water, and like 30 minutes later, the pain just vanishes. But here is the ultimate mystery. Once that pill dissolves in your stomach and hits your bloodstream, how on earth does it know your toe is what hurts? How does it magically target your headache?
Well, here is a wild scientific plot twist for you. For decades, doctors, scientists, and pharmacologists did not actually know the full mechanism of how this drug worked. I mean, it's wild to think about, right? A medicine used by billions of people around the globe, and we only had half the puzzle. For years, the medical community just kind of assumed paracetamol merely worked up in the brain and spinal cord. They thought it basically just threw a heavy blanket over your brain's pain center, numbing your overall perception of the pain. But by thinking it only worked centrally in the brain, they were entirely missing what was happening down at the actual crime scene of the pain, like at your stub toe. Okay, let's dive right into this, because the puzzle was recently completed by a totally groundbreaking new study. It was published in the highly prestigious journal PNAS by researchers at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Led by Professor Alexander Binstock and Professor Avi Priol, this team finally cracked this decades-old mystery. They discovered that paracetamol doesn't just numb the brain. It actually travels right to the source of the pain. As Professor Binstock puts it, this is game-changing evidence. It literally rewrites our whole understanding of this everyday drug.
To truly appreciate this discovery, let's look at the biology of pain, using a really simple analogy. Imagine your nerve endings are like this complex network of phone cables spread throughout your entire body. When you stub that toe, the tissue damage triggers those local nerve endings to send an urgent, rapid-fire text message up the phone line straight to your brain's notification center. The message basically screams, "Alert, tissue damage in the left big toe, send help." And the crazy thing is, until your brain receives that frantic text message, you don't actually feel the pain.
So, what actually happens when you take the pill? Well, let's walk through this newly discovered biological sequence that happens right at those nerve endings. Step 1, you swallow the pill. Step 2, once the drug is metabolized, your body produces a very specific compound, an active metabolite called AM404. And here is the big plot twist. This AM404 compound isn't just made in the liver or the brain, it's produced directly in the peripheral tissues, right at the site of your stubbed toe. Step 3, once AM404 is on the scene, it forcefully closes the signal gates, stopping that urgent text message from ever being sent in the first place.
You can think of AM404 as the ultimate biological bouncer. This strict, heavy-duty bouncer goes straight to the peripheral tissues, basically the exact club where the rowdy pain signals are trying to get out. Instead of waiting all the way up in the brain to deal with the noise, the bouncer stands right at the exit doors of your toe's nerve endings and just intercepts the message. It physically blocks the pain signals from ever leaving that localized area. No entry, no exit.
But how does our biological bouncer actually stop the message? Well, in our bodies, nerves transmit signals using electrical currents, and these currents travel through tiny toll gates called sodium channels. Picture these sodium channels as little toll booths along the highway to your brain. What the Hebrew University researchers found is that the AM404 bouncer physically shuts down these specific sodium channels, specifically the NAV 1.8 and 1.7 channels. By locking the toll gates, the pain message is totally trapped. It can't even get onto the highway. Now, this naturally brings us to the great painkiller debate. If paracetamol acts like a strict bouncer, how does it compare to the other famous pill in your medicine cabinet, ibuprofen? Well, we can think of ibuprofen as the firefighter. While they both make you feel a whole lot better, they tackle the problem in completely different ways. The bouncer stops the signal from leaving the area. But the firefighter, it actually jumps right in to put out the physical fire that's causing the problem in the first place.
Let me explain how that works. When you get injured, your body produces chemicals called prostaglandins. These are basically the chemical alarms that trigger inflammation, redness, and swelling, the biological fire, so to speak. Ibuprofen is what we call an NSAID, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. It works by inhibiting specific enzymes called COX enzymes, which completely shuts down the production of those prostaglandins. So ibuprofen doesn't just block the pain signal, it literally puts out the fire of inflammation at the source. Paracetamol, on the other hand, it has virtually no anti-inflammatory powers. It's strictly about blocking the communication.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is understanding how our bodies handle these drugs, because they are definitely not harmless candy. According to extensive data from the NCBI, the toxic threshold for paracetamol in adults is between 10 to 15 grams in a single dose. Now that might sound like a massive amount, but because paracetamol is hidden in literally hundreds of over-the-counter cold and flu remedies, accidental overdoses are shockingly common. And taking too much doesn't just give you an upset stomach, it triggers a catastrophic biological failure.
And that major failure happens right in your liver. You see, when you take a normal dose of paracetamol, a small fraction of it is converted into a highly toxic molecule. Thankfully, your liver has a brilliant natural defense system, an antioxidant called glutathione. Glutathione instantly neutralizes the toxin, no problem. But if you take way too much paracetamol, your liver's supply of glutathione gets completely depleted. The toxic metabolites just run rampant, causing severe liver necrosis, which is essentially the death of liver tissue. Oh, and a super important warning here. Consuming alcohol forces your liver to produce even more of that toxic metabolite, which severely multiplies your risk. To quickly summarize the risks, we've got a bit of a side effect showdown. Paracetamol, as we just saw, is generally gentle on the stomach but can heavily tax the liver at high doses. Ibuprofen, it has the exact opposite problem. Remember those prostaglandins that cause inflammation? Well, it turns out prostaglandins also serve a crucial protective role in your body. They maintain the protective mucosal lining of your stomach. By blocking prostaglandins to stop inflammation, ibuprofen also strips away your stomach's armor, which can lead to severe stomach irritation, ulcers, or even bleeding with long-term use.
So, bringing this all back together, here is our big aha moment regarding our everyday painkiller. That decades-old mystery, finally solved. Paracetamol isn't just a simple brain-numbing agent like we thought. It is a dual-action ninja. It works centrally in the brain to turn down your overall perception of pain. And it works peripherally at the exact site of your injury by deploying that AM404 bouncer to shut down the sodium channel toll gates. It brilliantly fights the pain from both ends of the nervous system. And this perfectly illustrates why this discovery is so incredibly important. It's not just about understanding an old drug, it's a literal roadmap for the future. By knowing exactly how AM404 targets these specific sodium channels at the nerve endings, scientists can now design a whole new generation of precise, highly targeted painkillers. Imagine a future where a drug goes straight to your sore joint or injured skin to shut off the pain, without making your brain feel all groggy, without causing muscle weakness, and without risking damage to your liver or your stomach. That is a real game changer.
It's just amazing to think that a tiny pill we've taken for granted for over 70 years still held such incredible biological secrets. But now that you know exactly how they work, you can make a smarter choice next time you're hurting. Do you need the firefighter to reduce swelling, or do you need the strict bouncer to just stop that pain signal in its tracks? I'm actually really curious about your habits. Which pill do you usually reach for first when you're in pain, and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the discussion going. Stay curious, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next explainer.